Fred Beck from Fred Talks Fighting, and today we're very lucky to be joined by Manny Robles. So thank you for coming on.
And thank you for having me.
So how are you, Manny, and how is the coaching going?
I'm good. And as I just show you the weather out here in California, it's a beautiful sunny day, and just staying busy in the gym, working with my boxers. I'm later on tonight. I'll be doing some commentating for ESPN Plus and the international telecast. So you might be able to catch that later on the ESPN show, the international telecast later on tonight for the top rank event where we have the main event, Ivan Baranchik versus Jose Cepeda.
And obviously I'm going to ask you your reaction about Ruiz training with Eddie Reynoso in the Canelo camp, because it came out recently. But I want to know a bit about you first. And I was reading up online on Box Record, was saying that you used to coach the USA amateur national team, and then you took over to coach the pros. So how much of that is a turnover? Because amateur boxing is a lot different to the pro game.
Yeah, it is. Well, let me tell you a little bit about my background. I was an amateur boxer first before anything, and then obviously after being an amateur boxer, I turned pro. So I was both an amateur and a professional boxer myself. And long story short, I soon after I retired from boxing, my dad took me under his wing, and I became my dad's assistant coach. And I actually started working with professional boxers before I even began working with amateurs. So I started the other way around. I went through the working with pros, and then I had my son, Manny Robles III. When he was old enough to fight to compete as an amateur, I began to coach him, and he's the one that got me involved in the amateur ranks. So I grew my way up as a coach, as an amateur coach. So I started from the ground up, like most coaches do, and eventually working with my son and other amateur boxers, that led me to being a state coach, regional coach, eventually the assistant coach for the USA national team, and then soon after that, I became the head coach of the USA boxing team.
So talking of coaching, you're now coaching heavyweight contender Charles Martin, who's former IBF champion.
Yeah.
He had
Correct.
a great win against Gerald Washington on the Wilder Fury 2 undercard. Do you think he can compete and challenge for another heavyweight championship again?
Well, that fight was a title eliminator. So yes, he's in the doorsteps of possibly getting another opportunity to fight for the heavyweight title. So I know that Anthony Joshua has the mandatory, and as soon as he gets through his mandatory, we're up next. If he can get through his mandatory, of course. If he does win, then we would get next up.
Apart from Charles Martin, are you coaching any other boxing prospects in your gym?
Yes, I coach many boxers, many amateurs. I coach amateurs and professional boxers at my gym. I presently have Anthony Herrera, which is a kid that is on the U.S. national team, soon to go to the Olympic qualifier, and hopefully qualify to the Olympic Games for Tokyo. But he's one of my prospects, amateur prospects, among other boxers that I work with, amateurs, and also pros. I just got back from Mexico, from Mérida, Yucatan, in the south of Mexico. We had one of my boxers fight Serhiy Bohachuk from the Ukraine, 18-0, 18 knockouts. Just as a week ago today, actually a week ago yesterday. We came back today a week ago, and he's now 18-0.
So now let's go back in time to 2019 May, where Miller tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs, and then Andy Ruiz stepped in. When you got told about the fight, what was your reaction that your fighter would be facing the heavyweight champion, who at that time, Manny Joshua, he seemed like an unstoppable force?
We get the phone call from Eddie Hearn about giving us the opportunity to fight for the heavyweight title versus Anthony Joshua. So of course we said yes, and then knowing that Andy had just fought a week prior, he was in shape. He was in phenomenal shape. He only took a week off, and we only had a month to prepare for Joshua, and so we make the best out of that, out of the situation. He was in good shape, and all we had to do was continue from that fight moving forward to the Joshua fight, and he was ready to fight Joshua June 1st. He was in great shape.
So on the final press conference in New York, I don't know, I've never seen an interview anyone asking about this, but did you plan with Andy to hold the belts, to ask Joshua to hold? Was that a game plan for mind games? So
No, not at all. No, not at all. I mean, it was, Anthony Joshua, he's a gentleman. And, we were at the press conference in New York. He was holding up his belt, and he was just being a gentleman. He says, hey, would you like to hold the belts? And I'm like, absolutely. I don't believe in superstition. I don't believe that anything, it was, that Anthony Joshua made a mistake by, allowing us to hold the belts. It's silly to think that it was because of that he lost the fight. It's just one of them situations where, he's being a gentleman, and we held the belts, and that was that. At the end of the night, it's you have to do your talking in the ring, and whatnot, but you have to be able to perform, and we were able to perform that night. Andy was, and he was able to shock the world.
And did you think that was going to happen? Was that your prediction that he would beat him? Or in your mind, were you not really sure? Like, you thought it'd be like a coin toss? Or did you know Andy was going to beat Andy Joshua?
No, we understood it was a difficult fight. I mean, we're fighting one of the best fighters in the world at the time, and still is. But you always come in prepared to win. Why else would you be in this game? And if not for that, we understood we had a chance just like anyone else does, especially in the heavyweight division, and we took advantage of it. We make the best out of it, and knowing again that the first time around, Andy was in great shape, so it didn't come to us as a surprise, because we believed in ourselves. We had faith in our work, and we had a good game plan, and we were able to execute and come out with the victory.
And speaking of great shape of Andy, you shot the world June 1st. So on December 7th, on the training camp before, what actually went wrong? Because I've seen loads of people saying, oh, he lost the hunger.
Everything went wrong. This was a good learning experience for Andy, but it also leaves everyone, including yourself and everyone out there. You're a young man. You're young. A young lad. It's you have both sides of the coin here. It shows you that when you, again, going back to the first fight, when you have faith in your work, when you believe in yourself, when you put in the work, when you put in the grind, the dedication, the discipline, anything can happen. As long as you believe in yourself, anything can happen. And look, we were able to shock the world the first time around. Unfortunately, the second time around, it also shows you what can happen when you reach the mountaintop and you lose focus, and you lose that hunger, and you lose that drive, and that dedication, you forget what got you to the mountaintop. You forget what got you to win the world title, and that's exactly what happened the second time around. Now you're a world champion. Now you're on top of the world. So now all of a sudden you surround yourself with new friends and new people, and that had never been around before, and they can guide you or mislead you, and you forget about training, forget about being disciplined, and there's a consequence and a repercussion to your actions. And unfortunately, Andy had to learn it the hard way, and he lost the title the second time around.
And when you were walking down to the ring in Saudi, did you think, in your mind, oh, he's bottled it, we've lost this? Or were you still confident going into the ring, into the rematch?
Well, and the second time around, I mean, I tried to I, as a coach, did the best I could to make sure that that I did my job. But at the end of the day, it's up to the fighter, because the fighter is the one stepping in the ring. You know, once you're in that ring, that's it. You know, it's up to you. It's an individual sport. So, you know, unfortunately, I understood that he wasn't 100% coming into this fight. And I did, as a coach, I did everything I possibly and humanly could to get him to convince him one way or another to you know, to try to come in the best shape possible. But he you know, his mind was somewhere else. Unfortunately, he wasn't you know, he wasn't focused. So, you know, like I said, you know, yeah, you pay the consequence, and that was losing a heavyweight belt.
So he's now switched. He's now split up from you. And he's now training Team Canelo, Eddie Reynoso. And what's your reaction to that? Because we just had recent footage come out of him training on the pads. Do you think they'll get back disciplined?
Look, I know Andy very well. Andy is a great fighter. Andy is he's got heart. He can fight. He's not scared of anybody. He's not scared to step up and fight the big fights. But unfortunately, it's more than that. It's more than just being a good fighter and having the courage to face anybody. There's something called discipline in the sport. And if you don't have that, I don't care. It doesn't matter where he trains. You know, you can bring back Angelo Dundee and Emmanuel Stewart back from the dead and work with Andy. But if the fighter doesn't want it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who he trains with. So he's with a good team with, you know, Canelo and Reynoso and, you know, everyone else that's there. I think they're very good, and the coach is a very good coach, obviously. But it's up to the fighter at the end of the day. The fighter's got to want it. And is he capable of becoming a world champion again? I believe so. But remember, it's been what, 10 months since his last fight. It'll be well after the year before he fights again. So you know, time doesn't stop. You know, the clock keeps on ticking. So you got to get with it. You know, you got to get to work. But do I believe he can, you know, become a world champion? Yes, I can. But it's up to you and I can believe that he can be. But it's up to him. Ultimately, it's up to the fighter.
All right, so thank you very much for your time, Manny. And where can people find you on social media?
Well, thank you very much for having me. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, manuel.boxing, and Twitter, Manny_boxing.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Perfect.